Excellent. So welcome everyone. We'll do a take two as if that didn't happen. So really glad to be joined by our colleagues today, and here's what we're going to be talking about. So just a quick reminder of where we are in terms of the data. What do the data tell us about the presence of COVID in our schools? And then just really working to continue to bring up participation, to bring up parent consent so that we get as many students and staff involved as possible. The bulk of the meeting today, the really important reason that you're here today is to learn about what action steps you need to take to keep pooled testing going after break, after the April vacation. And we're going to talk to you today about what you need to do if you are working with your vendor and it's going well and you want to maintain that same vendor after April break. We're going to talk about if you want to change vendors based on the vendors that we're going to go over with you today who are now available through our statewide initiative. And then if you're new, if you want to start pooled testing, we're glad to have you. And we're going to talk about what you need to do to get signed up after April vacation as well. So then we'll quickly review some next steps, which will be a recap of a lot of what we talk about, and hopefully give you some time at the end of the presentation to maybe take some of those action steps so that you have as much continuous, seamless service as possible. We want that uninterrupted service to continue right through the rest of this spring. So let's just talk about what we know about what's working with pool testing. What do we know about the results? And so just first of all, a recap of what we've been describing to you about the positivity rate that we see in our schools through all the testing that we're doing across the state. So when we look statewide at all the testing that's being done, we're seeing a 0.8 positivity rate. And I would ask that, maybe take that 0.8 positivity rate and compare it to what you see across the state, the statewide rate within your community. Again, I think it just tells us that those mitigation strategies that you're using are working very well, and they're keeping our students and staff safe in our schools. And if they're not, if we see a change, we know that we need to adjust the mitigation strategies. This is a way that we can have data-based decision-making about the prevalence of COVID in our schools. And when we take that 0.8 positivity rate for the pools, that's the pooled positivity rate, and think about it on an individual basis, each sample in the pool represents an individual, obviously. So we're talking about a population and individuals within a population of approximately 0.2. So for the individual, once we get beyond the pooled results and look at the projected individual results, estimated individual results, we're seeing an even lower prevalence as well. And so I think the other good news is that we're getting these results back really quickly. And so the next day, really, when we talk about 17.8 hours is the average turnaround time, schools are getting their results very quickly. And we just hope that that keeps the information flowing so that you can take the steps necessary to support your students and staff appropriately. Just want to give a quick reminder. I'm not going to go into this at length, but we talked in our last meeting about getting more students and families enrolled and through the consent process. And so I just want to put these slides back in front of you again today, because while we're very pleased about the numbers of schools and districts signed up, within schools and districts, we'd love to see even more consent. And so just a reminder about some messages perhaps that you could embed into your welcome back after April vacation messages, ways in which that schools and districts are communicating with families about why this is important. We think that it's an important thing to probably stay on, that you did a lot probably initially to get people signed on to pool testing, to do that outreach maybe earlier in the winter about providing consent and getting on board. It seems like it's a message that you're going to need to keep sending. And we want to just encourage you to keep sending that message of why it's so important to participate. It's really this middle section that I think is so important about why this is so important to help keep our students, staff, and families safe. Because the faster that we can detect, trace, and isolate COVID-19 positive individuals, the more that we can lower that risk of transmission within our schools. And again, just a reminder that it's quick, it's free, it's voluntary, and on this page, remember that we've shared with you some great resources, some videos to share with parents. Just again, when we talk about those ideas, that it's quick, it's free, it's voluntary. I think these videos really help to show that in action. If you have anybody who's skeptical, anybody who's concerned about how intrusive it is, we know it's not. And that, just further education to overcome any misinformation out there about how much time it's taking out of the school day. We're so glad to have so many more students back in school. This is a minimal amount of time for really important information. So the more that you can just continue to push out these messages and, not just push them out, but engage families. What are ways in which educators, administrators, parent ambassadors, student ambassadors can engage families who haven't signed up yet, so that there can be a dialogue about the need for participation is something that we would encourage you to continue to do. What I want to go to next, though, is, again, the meat of the presentation today, the bulk of the presentation today, talking about how do we maintain uninterrupted services after April break. So let's just set the context for this, just a reminder of where we are. I'm so pleased that, remember, our initial plan was that after April break, districts would assume the costs of pooled testing. That is no longer the case. The state will continue to pay for pooled testing through the remainder of this school year and through the summer. So if you're signed up for pooled testing, keep in mind that you can continue to participate not only just through the end of this school year, but also through the summer. We're hoping that there will be enhanced summer school services for students this summer. We know you're planning your extended school year services for students with disabilities. So just, right now here in April, I hope I'm giving you some reassurance and peace of mind that if you've got this going, you can keep it going right through the end of this school year and through the summer at no cost to the district. And I think that's such important news. So we're funding this, but now we need to think about, there are steps though that you need to do to keep this funding going. They are very simple, they're straightforward, but now I want to transition to what you need to know about keeping the services going after April break. So the way in which we've gone about this is because we'd originally planned to end our involvement in the contracting process at the end here on April 18th, we had to start a new contracting process. And so we've stood up a statewide contract. And again, much gratitude to our colleagues at the Executive Office of Health and Human Services for their tireless work on this. And so we have qualified vendors who can provide pooled testing through our statewide contract process. And essentially what that first step did in this system is to create a state procured set of vendors who either the state can contract with or districts can contract with. And I'm sure that any of you who work on any side of procurement, I know we have a variety of participants here. We have school health officials and nurses. We have superintendents, business leaders, or special education directors, or pupil services directors. Anybody who's been involved in state contracting and procurement knows that when you're buying off of a state contract list, there are fewer steps you have to take to, in the kind of getting, quotes and bids, depending on the size of the contract. And so essentially we've set up a statewide contract of pooled testing vendors. But then on top of that, the state had to do what you as districts would normally have to do in order to purchase off of a state contract. And so we put out an RFQ, a request for quotes, to ask which of the approved vendors on that state contract list offered the best value for a state-funded program. And so we had to look at the same way that you would when you're asking to purchase off of a state contract list. You have to set some parameters around how you're going to look at the quotes that you get back from the vendors and decide which ones offer the best value, and therefore you're going to contract with. We're doing the exact same thing at the state level. And so we had 6 vendors who are now part, and I'll show you them in just a second. We have 6 vendors who are on that pre-procured state list. We've accepted quotes from 4 of them. So 4 out of the 6, the state will be paying for, or continue to maintain in our state-funded program. And if you want the services from the other 2 vendors, districts can elect to purchase their services off of the state contract list, following whatever local processes you have in place for your context. So if that means quotes or bids, whatever you need to do, you can do off of our state contract list. We've done the same thing and ended up with, and very pleased to have 4 of the qualified vendors that fall under our statewide contract who we are purchasing their services for through the rest of this school year and the summer, just like I mentioned before. So that process of identifying those vendors helps us understand which ones the state is paying for. We are only paying for the services of those vendors who were selected through the RFQ process. So without any further ado, let's talk about who those vendors are. So remember that pre-procured list on the statewide contract include the 6 vendors you see here: CIC Health, Ginkgo Bioworks, JCM Analytics, which is a new vendor, Project Beacon, Quest Diagnostics, and Veritas Genetics. Those are the 6 vendors. You see the 3 that are listed as new, and then we're familiar with the 3 who we contracted with originally back in the earlier part of the winter. And so now those 6 break out into 2 categories. On the left side in the orange box, the vendors who will be part of our statewide pool testing program, the ones that the state will fund, are CIC, Ginkgo, Project Beacon, and Veritas. Those are the 4 vendors that districts can either continue working with, choose to switch to, or if you're not participating yet, you can choose, give us your preference from among those 4. And as always, we do our best to match based largely in part on your preference, but any other factors as well. The 2 vendors in the blue box, Quest Diagnostics and just JCM Analytics, their services can be purchased directly by districts, but the state will not be covering the costs of those services directly. So I hope that kind of helps you understand how we take the full state contracted list and split it out into the ones that through our own RFQ process, we identified as offering the best value for the state. And we included them in the DESE pooled funding program, pooled testing program funded through the state, versus the ones that are also high quality vendors, but won't be included in our state funded initiative. So I'll be glad to answer questions at the end about this difference in the 2 vendors, but the 2 types of vendors. But I hope this sort of sets up what you need to know in order for the choice making that you need to do to keep services going in your districts, in your schools and districts. So here's how the timeline works. We've got our new contract with the vendors that I just showed you, the 4 that I just showed you. Our contract will start on April 25th. And so any pool testing that happens from now right through April 24th are covered on our current contract. So most of you will have April vacation next week, but if for some reason you're still doing some pool testing next week, it's okay. We actually extended the current contract to cover us all the way through April 24th. Again, we just want that seamless service. So we've got, minute by minute covered with the existing contract, and then, then transitioning into the new contract. So we've got our testing services covered through April 24th. Our new contract starts on April 25th. But here's the really important thing. Here's where I really need your attention. We need to make sure that you tell us what you want to do after April 24th, or really, I hope many of you are going to take some time off. It's definitely a long weekend. I hope it's a extended long weekend for many of you. So what we really need you to do is by this Friday, so today's Tuesday, right? By Friday, we need you to complete our very short application, particularly if you're currently working with a vendor and you want to stay with that vendor. We have made this as streamlined and simplified as possible, but we need you have to tell us what you want to do so that we have a contractual arrangement to provide those services. Without your essentially consent, without your assurance, without your authorization, we would not be able to maintain those services after April break, and that's not something that we want to see happen. So again, I'll need you to just take a little bit of time between now and the end of the week to complete our survey-based information. You're pretty familiar with that process with us, and you just need to update it so that we are able to give as continuous as services as possible. So we're asking you to do that by the 16th. And as they come in, we're going to dedicate our time to just keeping the matching going. The earlier you do it, if you do it earlier this week, it's going to help us in our communication with the vendor. So if you can even do it today, that would be great. But as soon as you start giving us your responses, we will start communicating with the vendors to tell them, you are either continually matched with this district, or this district is moving off of your services. And then we have to tell the new vendor, hey, this district wants you. And so keep in mind that's going to take some communication and coordination for us. And so we would just ask that you, as quickly as possible, give us that information, all in the service of keeping the information, keeping the work going as seamlessly as possible. So if you are working with your current vendor, want to remain with your current vendor, you should expect those services to continue on as usual on and after April 25th, as long as you respond to our survey by the 16th. If you want to change testing vendors, again, let us know by April 16th, but keep in mind, everything that it took to start and get your services going with the current vendor you're working with. If you switch vendors, and it's fine, you absolutely can do that, but just keep in mind you're starting over with the consent process and the ramping up that you need to do. And so there is a likelihood that there could be a gap in services if you're switching between vendors. And then anyone new to the program, we're going to coordinate with you. We're going to coordinate with the testing providers and get you started just as quickly as we possibly can. We've got that down. We know what we need to do to support you if you are a new school or district, and we really welcome you into the process and want to get you going as soon as we can. So what is it that you need to do? What is that again, simple process that I need you to do by this Friday? So we've kind of made it one-stop shopping for everyone. It doesn't matter what your participation status is. If you are working with your current vendor, want to stay with your current vendor, if you want to switch vendors, or if you're new, we need you to go back to the authorized school application, or for the first time, come to this authorized school application. We've got the link right here in this document, in the PowerPoint, and we'll make sure that you have it during this meeting as well. And so that application, the authorized school application, we are releasing to you now to really help with that matching process. And again, there are the different paths that you'll find within the survey. The survey branches out. It's going to ask you, do you want to stay with your current vendor? Do you want to change vendors? Or are you not yet participating but want to? And so depending on which path you're going down, we will make sure that we match you up, and the survey will guide you through that process. And that way you're able to get us and that uploaded, updated statement of assurances so that we cover this new time period that goes right through the end of this summer. So again, it's a survey that just branches off. You'll need to do what you did the last time by giving us a signature on that statement of assurances, uploading it to us, and having it ready to go by the 16th. But again, really important that we get that done in time for before this weekend in order to maintain that unbroken services for your school or district.
And Russell, I'm sorry, can I just add one thing there?
Of course, Jeremiah, please.
Thank you. I just want to make sure folks know who are continuing the program, who have already entered in our testing, you don't have to re-upload that spreadsheet that you did have to upload the first time. So that we have all of that. We'll just ask if you do have a change in your support needs or in the way that you want to do follow-up testing, stuff like that, but you don't have to put together that whole spreadsheet again. That's all I want to say. Thanks, Russell.
No, that's helpful, because keeping in mind that the last time it was both the statement of assurances and the school application. And so this time it's the statement of assurances, which Jeremiah, Lauren, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a signature that we're looking for on that form. It's not a lot of school-based information, especially if nothing's changing. Lauren?
Correct. Yep. Everybody needs to resubmit the statement of assurances because it now includes a longer time frame as part of the application, but you will be prompted in the application to upload that.
Yep. Great. Excellent. Thanks very much. Again, we're going to, if you're currently participating in the program, we're going to ask you to indicate your current vendor and whether or not you want to maintain that vendor. If you want to change vendors, we're going to ask you to rank order the available vendors by preference. We'll do everything we can to match you with the vendor who you have expressed preference for. And then if there are additional questions, just please respond. There will be some additional questions that we just need you to respond to help with that understanding of if you have additional needs, just like Lauren and Jeremiah just said, and if you have a preferred testing follow-up method. So again, We still consider the follow-up testing standard to be by next now, but if you are switching vendors in particular, we want to know what your plans are, if you have anything that you're planning to do differently with follow-up testing as well. Jeremiah, Lauren, anything to add there or clarify? All right, so new districts that are new to the program, that's where you will need to actually do all the work that we just talked about. So both the statement of assurances, which again is, it's again, a Word document that lists all the responsibilities for the district and the vendors to participate in the program, kind of who's responsible for what are your responsibilities as the district. And then also a spreadsheet where we really need to get some detailed information about the schools that are participating, because ultimately it's the involvement is at the school level and the district level. And so we really need to get information about your schools in order for them to be ready to participate. If you're new to this process, we're also going to ask you to rank your preferred vendors and then let us know if you need logistical support or other supports, as well as your preferred start date. Again, this is if you're new to the program, which is different than if you're currently participating in the program. We already have much of almost all of this information, again, except for that statement of assurances, which really has to be updated in order to maintain these services throughout the rest of the spring. Lauren, Jeremiah, anything about the districts that are new to the program that I missed?
We'd love to have you. Let us know if you have questions.
Absolutely. It's not too late. And in fact, we were pretty careful not to give a date by which we're not giving you a deadline. We want you as soon as possible. I mean, obviously the sooner the better, but we want you to keep thinking about your participation with us. So again, the next steps for districts is just to make sure you complete that authorized school application and statement of assurances. If you're a new district, if you're a returning district, it's just the statement of assurances that you have to provide us. And for uninterrupted services, make sure we get that by the 16th. If you're a new district, if you submit by the 16th, we'll give you priority just to keep you moving along. Like I said, it's sort of a rolling process. The sooner we hear from you, the sooner we respond. And then, Lauren, this is the link that they need to go to for the assurances.
This is the application that every district will need to fill out, whether you're continuing into the program or if you're a new district. This is your new application. It will branch based on the category that your district may fall into, but everybody will submit the statement of assurances through this link and officially assure that they will continue with the program.
And Lauren, are you putting that into the chat?
I can put in the chat now. I told people I would wait till you got through your slides, so.
Sure. Okay, great. All right. Excellent. Well, we're basically there. So this is the link. Again, the one-stop shopping, everything that you need is right here at this link that we will make sure that you have access to. So I hope that's helpful. And we want to just give you a couple of updates about some other things that have transpired. There's always something going on in the world of school-based testing. And so there are updated consent forms, particularly around the use of Binex Now, that combine both the use of Binex Now for follow-up and pool testing and symptomatic testing all in one. And that updated form can be found in our pool testing section of our website, as well as the translations. So Lauren, I just want to make clear though that if you don't have to update the current consent form, you can keep using what you currently have.
Correct. Yeah, we will. Yes, for now, districts that are starting new, or maybe if they have not obtained consent yet, we are asking that they use this consent form that's on our website. Our testing vendors also will have this new consent form. So if you're getting consent through your testing provider, through their software system, you don't need to do anything because they've already updated their forms. If you are obtaining consent by using our forms from our website and managing that process on your own, then we ask that you just switch to these new forms.
Great. So no need to change if you're current with what you currently have. It's if you are making a change, if you're new to pooled testing or if you're changing vendors, then you're going to use our new consent form.
Correct.
But again, and really what we've done with this is we've just combined the consent for all aspects, all uses of Binex now into one consent form. That's the big change here. Great. And then, just finally, before we get to your questions, which I see coming in the chat, and I appreciate, just want to just remind you that the Shaw Foundation's website, covidedtesting.com, and the email address that Shaw has available for your questions are just tremendous resources, and would encourage you, again, thinking about any communication strategies, scheduling strategies, hearing from other districts, tips, takeaways, how to make this sort of sustainable and manageable in your local context. There are such great ideas here, so just encouraging you to take a look at what they are producing, what our colleagues at Shaw are putting up on their website. They're updating it regularly, and so feel free to check back to get more ideas about how to support pool testing in your local context. So let's look to the questions and see what's in here. Just one note of gratitude about keeping the program going through the summer, the state-funded services going through the summer, and so that's good news, and we appreciate that feedback. So
Russell?
Please, Lauren.
I'm sorry, before we get to questions, I just want to say a couple things. So I put the slides in the chat. I also just added the memo. We have created a pretty detailed memo to accompany our slides that will describe the process that schools and districts will need to take. So I just uploaded that into the chat, and I will send it out again. And at the same time, all of the documents on our pool testing website are now posted to that page. And so this presentation, along with all of the updated documents, will be on that site, and I will also put that link in the chat.
Great. I'm not sure I'm going to organize the questions super well. They're coming in on a variety of fronts, and so we'll make this sort of question potpourri. But let's go. So one participant asks, so we all need to do the statement of assurances, and the answer there is yes. The link that Lauren put in the chat, it's also in the PowerPoint that she's put into the chat as well as an upload that you can take and find the link. The survey branches, and so depending on if you're participating and want to stay with your current vendor or change vendors, or if you're new, it's all covered in that same link that you'll see in the chat. So definitely do that. A question that didn't have a lot of context, but if you already have Binex that's set up, you're fine. There's nothing if Binex is set up, there's nothing you need to do to change what you're doing to continue to have Binex come to your schools, right? The assurances is about pool testing and keeping this all going. There's nothing that changes about Binex now overall, right? Like there's really nothing you need to do to affirmatively keep Binex now going. The consent doesn't change if you're already using it. The process for receiving the test kits doesn't change. Binex now is steady. Jeremiah, anything you'd want to add about that?
Yeah, the only thing that you could possibly think about in terms of an update is if you were using Binex for symptomatic testing and now you want to use it with pooling and you hadn't really started pooling yet, then you would obviously want to do all the things you have to do to get started with pooling. Or if you were using Binex tests for pooling and now you want to start symptomatic, in which case we would just ask that you get consent for that symptomatic testing, which is included in the consent forms that Lauren's been posting. So if you're using it the same way, just keep doing what you're doing. If you're using it in a different way, then just make sure that you have it set up to use in that way.
And then where do they find the link for the new consent form?
The new consent forms are posted right on our website. You can also find all of the translated versions on the COVID Ed testing website with the Shaw Foundation, which we have linked those resources in both the PowerPoint and the memo.
Great. So a question about where districts can find the prices that we have agreed to through the statewide contracting. So Jeremiah, particularly if you're interested in working with the two vendors that we haven't included through our RFQ process in the state funded initiative, where do districts go to find out the prices of organizations like Quest and JCM?
I might defer that one to my colleague, Sean Burpo. I know that districts are allowed to reach out, obviously, and request quotes and issue an RFQ, but I don't know if there's anything that's publicly available in terms of what they responded to the RFR that we issued with. Sean, do you know?
Yeah, so on Combis, which is the state procurement website, if you the statewide contract label is HSP 42, and Lauren, maybe just throw that in the chat if you don't mind. And if you search there, you can request quotes from them, from the vendors who will provide the prices. Also, the contract user guide will be posted very shortly, which will provide full transparency on all the prices that are offered by the vendors. And Lauren, I apologize, it's P as in Peter.
Great. So, and then a question about if a district is in the program and continuing, do they have to change their vendor, or do they get to stay with their current vendor? And so, Lauren, do you want to just repeat this? Because this is really the bulk of the presentation today. I want to make sure that we're saying this as clearly and succinctly as we can.
Yep, and maybe you want to just go back one slide to what districts need to do as next steps. Yeah, so districts that would like to continue with their vendor, or if they would like to switch, or if they're a new school, all districts and schools who want to participate in the state-funded pool testing program need to fill out this authorized school application, and you will be asked in that application if you would like to stay with your current vendor. You have to let us know. We can't just continue you without a response to this survey, because we are switching to a new contract to do this. And so you have to affirmatively tell us whether or not you are, yes, continuing with your current vendor, or if you would like to switch to a new vendor on the state contract. But we cannot just continue you after April 18th. We need to have this application in.
Thanks, Lauren. So again, you can stay with your current vendor or switch. It's your choice, but you have to tell us by the 16th, and that would be important. I appreciate that very much. There are a decent number of questions in the chat about what if you're a district that's currently involved and you want to stay in the program, but maybe you want to shrink the number of schools in the district that are participating, or you want to add a school that's not currently participating. How do they respond to that through this survey, Lauren?
Yep, one of the questions asks if there's any changes to your program. And so you can just let us know right in that text box that you want to add more students, or you want to change the logistics of the program in some way. But it sort of gives you the freedom in a text box to give us the information that you need. And then you'll just work directly with your testing provider to figure out the details directly with them.
Yep. And again, we're seeing people saying, I've already done a statement of assurances. Do I have to do it again?
Yes, the previous statement of assurances only covered the period of our initial early launch. And so in order to, and it was under our old contracts with our testing vendors. We are now under a new contract. We have a new vendor as part of that. And so as a result, we need to have a new statement of assurances for our new contract and for the new time period that the state funded portion covers. Great.
So a question specifically about CIC, because one of the participants notes that CIC uses Project Beacon for the reporting process. And so the person is assuming that if they're using CIC, that everything remains the same, that they would continue to also have Project Beacon for the reporting of follow-up testing or reflex testing. Jeremiah?
Great question. Correct. It will work just the same.
Yep, exactly. Excellent. So question about, do any of the vendors actually conduct the pool testing for the district? A concern that of not having adequate PPE or staffing to implement the program. And so Lauren, do you just want to talk about how districts can indicate their need for those tier 2 or additional services that we have available? And then what about the PPE?
Yeah, so one of the questions in the application is whether or not a district or school would need that in-person support. And so we will take that into consideration and make sure to match you with a vendor. We are able to provide that in most cases to every district that requests that. And we work directly with the testing vendor to be able to do that. So you'll be able to indicate that. And if you are a district that's currently in the program that doesn't have that level 2 support, but would like it for the remainder of the year, you will also be given the opportunity to indicate that you want to add that service to your application, essentially, and we will be able to provide that to you. In terms of the PPE, if you have any of your own staff that will be participating in the administration of pool testing, the district will provide the PPE to your own staff members or employees. And then if you have tier 2 services or level 2 services, so vendors coming in, those vendors will provide their own PPE.
And Lauren, can you just say again exactly what's in those level 2 supports? Can you just repeat that one more time?
Sure, yeah. So you could request level 2 supports if you needed support in the administration of the test. So our testing vendors will contract with either an EMT service or a health staffing agency to provide the individuals to come on site to do the test administration or to observe the swabbing or specimen collection for you. And then we also have a project manager of sorts that could be provided if you needed some support managing the logistics on the ground.
Great, thanks very much. One participant notes that with the statement of assurances, if you try to upload the entire document, you get an error message that the file is too large, and so you can only upload the signature page. Any thoughts on that, Lauren?
Yeah, we've encountered this a lot. Unfortunately, it's an Alchemer or Survey Gizmo glitch, and we have heard that if you refresh the page, it will allow you to upload the document, but I think having just the signature page is sufficient. Great.
So a quick question came in about, is there a cost for level 2 services? The answer is no. Those are covered by the state. We don't want those, the need for those services to be a barrier to participation. And so that's why we are including that. And just a couple of things. Some people have noted that they've arrived late. So just want to mention a couple of things. We have announced in this webinar today that we are paying for the costs through the summer. So that was a question that came up about, hey, what's going on this summer? The state funded program will go through the end of August. August 31st is now the end date for state funded pooled testing. And then seeing some questions about, again, on Project Beacon and CIC. So if Project Beacon is the vendor you're currently working with for pooled testing, and you want to stay with them, please mark that in the statement of assurances that you need to complete for us by the 16th. If CIC is the vendor you're working with, and yes, they use Project Beacon for reporting, but CIC is the vendor for pool testing, and you want to stay with them, please indicate that in the statement of assurances, and you'll continue to have the services provided in the way that you've grown accustomed to. The way that it's happening right now in your district will continue to be the way that they will be provided going forward. So appreciate those questions very much, and continue to look at these kind of more technical questions as well. Let me just go back up a little bit. The chat is like a stream, and so you've got to kind of like wait in, wait out a little bit here. So anything about the students who were COVID positive will soon need to wait 180 days to participate in pool testing. When does that change begin?
So we had put that in our FAQ several months ago after receiving that guidance from the Department of Public Health. That was right before the news from the CDC about the variants came out. So that timeline from 90 days to 180 days has still not changed, and it does not seem imminent. So I think we can just safely assume for the time being that that'll be 90 days.
Yep, staying there at the 90 days, great. And then some questions about the use of Binax now for close contacts. We gave a kind of a teaser for that at our last meeting. We don't have more information for you right now, but we promise you that as soon as we do have more information, we will absolutely bring that to you. That is actively under review right now. So glad to continue to hear your feedback on that as well as we go forward. And I think we've covered a lot of this. Some of the kind of basic questions too about what's actually covered through pooled testing is actually described in our first memo. So if you go to our pooled testing website, take a look at the memo that we released in February or January, actually, January. Yep. Take a look there. That talks about what's covered kind of universally.
It's included in our current memo, Russell.
It's included in the current memo, which, I've read. So Lauren, I appreciate that reminder very much. And that is awesome. And then private schools. So we are considering how independent private schools might ultimately be able to participate down the road. For right now, pool testing through our state funded initiative is available for publicly funded students. So that includes school districts, charter schools, approved special education schools, and education collaboratives. So those are the 4 groups right now that we are able to provide these services to because the students are publicly funded. And so look ahead to if we are able to figure out other solutions for private schools, which again is actively being considered right now, we will definitely update you. A question about Veritas, our new vendor, and how their program works. I would encourage you to take a look at the memo that at the end of it, just like we did before, the new memo, the one that we released today, at the end of it describes the 4 vendors that are included through the state funded program. And there's a side-by-side comparison of how their systems work. And I think that would be a really good starting point to find out more about Veritas, the new vendor that's included through our RFQ process. So I think that's mainly the questions that we can answer today. I see the questions about more data, and I hear you on that. And when we are able to release more information, we certainly will, as we continue to gather that and be ready to share it out. So that's mainly it for the questions for today. Jeremiah, could you just say one more time about if a student tests positive, that they should not be part of pooled testing for 90 days, just a request to repeat that question.
Sure. So the question, I believe, was in regards to what we had initially said in our FAQ, which was if somebody has tested positive within the last 90 days, then they should not be included in pooled testing. And we had added a note to that said, this is going to be extended to 180 days from 90 days very soon. And that was a couple months ago. So you're right to follow up on that, whoever that was. However, that was right before the CDC really started tracking variants. And that has made it, as a result of that, they have not extended that deadline, that kind of timeline from 90 days to 180 days. And it does not appear to be particularly imminent. So I believe that we've actually pulled that little line from the FAQ. And the important thing to know is that if somebody has tested positive in the last 90 days, they should not be included in pooled testing period until after those 90 days are over. That is because they could trigger a positive result, even though they are no longer contagious.
Yeah, great. A couple other questions just coming in real quick. So summer camps, what about summer camps? Are they included? So this program is for schools and school-based services. So camps come in a lot of different varieties. We've had some amusing conversations between all of us about what's a school-based camp versus what's a city-based camp or a private or nonprofit camp. So essentially, for summer, if it's a school-based program, maybe you call it a camp, but it's really run by the school department, and the school department is currently participating in pool testing or wants to join our pool testing initiative. Our state contract can cover those services. We can't cover the services for the private camps, independent camps, city-based or town-based camps. And so, we continue to look at, what other solutions could be available there. This initiative, though, is really focused on school districts. Lauren, people asking about any kind of problems they're having troubleshooting, even uploading the document. Would you mind putting the email address in the chat for where to go if you're facing challenges? Just a reminder that if you're still having trouble uploading, hit refresh on that screen where you would go to upload, or just do the statement of assurances signature page only. But that's helpful.
Yeah,
then-
I did just try it, Russell, myself, because I saw some people in chat saying they're having difficulties. You have to download the link as a separate Word document, and the statement of assurances will pop up. Save that on your computer after it's signed, and then re-upload it to the application. So there's, you know, a couple of technical steps involved, but the file size is quite large that it accepts. I hope people won't continue to have difficulties.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So Lauren, do you just want to say that one more time about those steps?
Sure. So on the statement of assurances page in the application, there is a link to download the document. Once you download it, you can save it to your computer, sign it, and then re-upload it to the file upload page.
Great, excellent. So we're going to wrap up a little bit early here, hopefully to give you time. These next 12, 13 minutes, maybe it could be time to just go ahead and get this done, upload it, submit what you need, take this off your plate. I know it's always a busy week. That run up to the vacation is always a time when, you know, kind of everything comes out of the woodwork. And so the sooner you get this done this week, maybe the sooner you take it off your to-do list, gives us as much time as possible to keep that process going and to make sure that you have those services ready at the end of the April vacation, and just really appreciate everything that you've done to make this happen. And we continue to support your work in every way that we can. And so thank you for being here. You have a great rest of the day. And if you're taking some time next week, I hope you are. I hope you have a restful and rejuvenating time. I look forward to seeing you soon. We'll hold another webinar as soon as we have more information to share with you. As always, we want to keep this dialogue going. Have a great rest of the day. Take good care.